The German Shepherd hit the first paramedic so fast, the man's equipment bag was still in the air when he landed on the floor. The trauma team froze. The female Navy SEAL on the gurney was bleeding out, and the dog standing over her was not going to let anyone close enough to stop it. Hospital security chief raised his radio. "Shoot the animal!" Officer Marcus Cole, 25 years old, navy blue uniform still dirty from the traffic accident he had left 40 minutes ago, stepped through the doors and heard that order and felt something cold move through his chest. Because he recognized that dog. And he knew something nobody else in this room knew. If this story already has you holding your breath, subscribe right now and stay until the very end. Drop a comment telling us what city you are watching from. Let us find out how far this story of loyalty travels. The call had come through on a frequency Marcus Cole was not supposed to be monitoring. He was a patrol officer with the San Diego Police Department, 25 years old, 7 months out of field training, assigned to the I-8 corridor for a double shift that had already included a 3-car accident, a domestic disturbance that resolved before he arrived, and 40 minutes of paperwork that was going to have to wait. His German Shepherd, Ace, was in the back of the patrol unit, tan and gold coat visible in the rear view, amber eyes tracking the radio traffic with the focused patience of a dog that had been trained to distinguish relevant from irrelevant and had opinions about both. The call was not a dispatch call. It was a frequency he had been given 8 months ago by a man he was not supposed to know, for a situation that was not supposed to happen. It happened anyway. "Bravo, unit. This is Coronado Medical. We have a down operator. GSW, right thoracic. ETA, 4 minutes. K9 is in transport with the patient, and we cannot separate them." Repeat. We cannot separate the dog from the handler. We need someone who knows Ghost Protocol 7 at this facility immediately. Marcus heard the phrase Ghost Protocol 7 and pulled off the highway before the transmission finished. He knew that phrase. He had been told never to repeat it, never to write it down, and never to act on it unless the situation was exactly what this situation was. He had been told this by Master Chief Petty Officer Lena Vasquez, call sign Atlas, who was either the most terrifying person he had ever met or the most extraordinary, depending on which day he was asked. He had met her 8 months ago, when a K9 unit from Naval Special Warfare had been attached to a joint operation that nobody was officially calling a joint operation, and Atlas had spent 40 minutes teaching him 3 words in a language he could not identify, and telling him that those 3 words were the only thing standing between a combat-locked German Shepherd and a room full of people who would not survive the dog deciding they were a threat. He had not expected to use them. "Ace," he said, "we are going to the hospital." Ace looked at him in the rear view with the amber-eyed attention of a dog who had been listening to the radio traffic and had already formed an opinion. Balboa Naval Medical Center's emergency bay was chaos organized by proximity to death. Marcus had been in chaotic emergency rooms before. He had been in situations where the variables were moving too fast for any single person to track all of them simultaneously. What he had not been in was a room where an 85-pound German Shepherd was the primary variable, and nobody had the expertise to change it. He heard the dog before he saw it. Not barking. The growl was low and structural. The kind of sound that communicated not volume, but absolute certainty. The certainty of a trained system executing its function without ambiguity or hesitation. Marcus pushed through the trauma bay doors with Ace at his left knee and assessed the room in 3 seconds. The German Shepherd stood over the gurney, with every line of its body communicating a single message. The handler on that gurney was alive, and would remain alive for as long as the dog was standing, and anyone who believed otherwise was welcome to test the proposition. The handler was a woman, late 20s, dark hair, olive green shirt visible above the trauma dressing the paramedics had managed before the dog stopped allowing access. Her face was pale with blood loss, and her breathing was shallow, and her vital signs on the portable monitor were moving in the wrong direction with the steady patience of numbers that did not negotiate. Dr. Sandra Okafor, the trauma physician on duty, had the expression of a person who had been managing an impossible situation for 11 minutes and was running out of options to manage it with. She was brilliant and efficient, and she had absolutely no training for this specific variable. "That dog has stopped 3 attempts to access the patient," she said, to no one in particular. "We have been unable to sedate it, unable to secure it, and unable to reach the patient for definitive treatment." Her voice was controlled and fast. "She has 8 minutes, maybe less." "I need everyone to stop moving," Marcus said. Every head turned. He was 25 years old, in a patrol uniform that was still dirty from a traffic accident, and he had spoken with the flat authority of someone who was not making a request. The room went still, with the slightly stunned quality of a space that has just been recalibrated by someone who was not on the expected list of people who could recalibrate it. Ace was at his left knee, unmoving, reading the room with the professional focus of a canine that had been trained in exactly this kind of high-variable environment. "Who are you?" The hospital security chief, a broad man named Gerald Cross, who had been the largest presence in the room before Marcus arrived, stepped forward with the competitive irritation of someone whose authority has been interrupted. "This is a restricted medical facility. You do not have jurisdiction here." "That dog does not respond to rank or jurisdiction," Marcus said, without looking at Cross. His eyes were on the German Shepherd, which had registered his arrival and was now doing something it had not done for any other new arrival. It was watching him. Not tracking him as a threat, watching him the way a dog watches something it is trying to classify. "Officer," Dr. Okafor said, "if you have any capability here, please use it in the next 60 seconds. She is deteriorating." The canine specialist from the base had arrived 6 minutes before Marcus. He was a sergeant named Torres, with 14 years of working dog experience, and the professional confidence of someone who had never encountered a dog he could not reach. He had tried German commands, Dutch commands, hand signals, treats, and a catch pole that the dog had removed from his hand so efficiently that Torres was still looking at the bite marks on his forearm, with the expression of a man reconsidering his career assumptions. "Standard military working dog protocols are not working," Torres said. He had the integrity to state it plainly, even though it cost him something. "Whatever this dog was trained on, it is not in any manual I have access to." "It is not in any manual anyone has access to," Marcus said. He moved 1 step closer to the dog, slow and deliberate, his body language open. "Ghost Protocol 7 is a classified training methodology developed for a specific tier of Special Operations Canine. The commands are not German. They are not Dutch. They are a hybrid, developed for dogs with a cognitive and operational profile that standard programs cannot accommodate." He paused. "I know 3 of the commands." The room processed this. "You are a patrol officer," Cross said. "Yes. How does a patrol officer know classified naval special warfare canine protocols?" "That is a question for a different day," Marcus said. He looked at Dr. Okafor. "How long?" "6 minutes," she said. 5.5. Ace moved, not forward, not toward the other dog, sideways, half a step, positioning himself at a different angle to the room. Marcus had worked with Ace for 2 years, and he understood immediately what the dog was doing. Ace was reading the other German Shepherd's body language from a lateral position that reduced direct confrontation while maintaining visibility. He was doing canine assessment the way Marcus had been trained to do tactical assessment, by gathering information before acting on it. "Good boy," Marcus said quietly. "Tell me what you see." It was not a command he had been taught. It was something they had developed between them over 2 years of working together. A specific tone that Ace understood as permission to communicate rather than execute. The dog made a brief sound, not a bark, not a growl, something in between, and shifted his weight forward slightly. "He is not in pure aggression lock," Marcus said, translating what Ace had just told him. "He is in handler protection protocol. There is a difference." Aggression lock means the dog is operating on threat response. Protection protocol means the dog is waiting for specific authorization to stand down. He looked at the German Shepherd on the gurney. He is waiting for someone who has the authority to tell him his handler is safe. "And you have that authority?" Torres said. The question was not hostile. It was the question of a professional who had just been shown something outside his training and was trying to incorporate it accurately. "I have the words," Marcus said. "Whether he accepts them from me depends on whether he recognizes the protocol well enough to respond to the language, even from someone who is not his handler's team." He paused. "There is only one way to find out." 5 minutes, Dr. Okafor said. Her voice had lost the last trace of professional modulation. It was just fact now, delivered because silence was not an option. 5 minutes, officer." Marcus took another step. Ace moved with him, not matching his pace exactly, but maintaining the lateral position. 2 dogs, reading each other across a space that felt much smaller than it was. The German Shepherd on the gurney growled, not louder, differently. The growl of a system that has registered something requiring recategorization and is running the process. "He hears something," Torres said quietly. "He hears Ace," Marcus said. "And Ace is not a threat. He knows that already." He took one more step. He was close enough now to read the dog's eyes, the amber focus that was doing exactly what Ace's eyes did when something significant was being decided. He is working. Cross moved, not toward the dog, toward his radio. "I am calling this animal control with a sedative rifle. We are not waiting for a patrol officer to run an experiment on a dying woman." "Gerald," Dr. Okafor's voice cut through the room. "If you pick up that radio, I will have you removed from this bay." The sedative would take 15 minutes to work. She has 4. She looked at Marcus. "Do it now." Marcus looked at the German Shepherd. He thought about Atlas, about the 40 minutes in a briefing room 8 months ago, when she had said these words to him with the flat certainty of someone handing over something valuable and trusting it would be held correctly. She had not told him why she was telling him. She had said only that the program existed, that the dogs trained in it were different from every other military working dog in the system, and that if he ever heard the phrase Ghost Protocol 7 in a real situation, the 3 words she was about to teach him were the only thing that would matter. He said the first word. It was not German. It was not Dutch. It was something Marcus had never heard in any other context. A sound built for a specific dog and a specific kind of trust. And it landed in the trauma bay with a clarity that made everyone present go absolutely still. The German Shepherd's growl did not stop, but it changed. Marcus said the second word. The dog's ears, which had been locked back in the full protective posture, moved forward 1 degree. His weight shifted. His eyes moved from the room to Marcus, with an attention that was entirely different from the threat tracking of the past 11 minutes. 4 minutes, someone said. It might have been Okafor. It might have been the monitor. Marcus was not listening to anything except the dog. He said the third word. The German Shepherd stepped back from the gurney. He did not collapse. He did not submit. He moved with the precision of a trained system that has received authorization from a recognized source, stepping back exactly far enough to allow access to the patient while maintaining a position from which he could reassess if the assessment changed. And then he sat down. The silence lasted 2 seconds. Then, Dr. Okafor moved, and the team moved with her, and the machinery of saving the woman on the gurney came back online with the focused urgency of professionals who had been held back from something urgent and were not going to waste a single second of the time they had just been given. Marcus stood at the edge of the bay with Ace at his left knee and watched the team work and felt the German Shepherd's amber eyes on him from across the room, still watching, still assessing. Not the assessment of a threat, but the assessment of something trying to understand what category Marcus Cole belonged to. Ace made a soft sound. Marcus looked down at his dog. Ace was looking at the German Shepherd with a specific expression he reserved for situations where his judgment had been confirmed by events. The expression that meant his read of the room had been accurate. "Yeah," Marcus said quietly. "I know." Torres appeared beside him. The canine specialist's professional pride had been replaced by something more honest. "Ghost Protocol 7, he said. "What else does it involve?" "I do not know," Marcus said. "I was taught 3 words by someone who trusted me with them, for a situation I never expected to face." He watched Dr. Okafor work, watched the numbers on the monitor begin their slow correction. "That is the whole of what I know." From the doorway, a woman in civilian clothes, with the bearing of someone who had never entirely stopped being military, watched Marcus Cole with an expression that was not quite surprise and not quite recognition, but held elements of both. She had arrived in the 4th minute of the standoff through a side entrance and had been watching since. She had a phone pressed to her ear, and she was saying something into it in a voice too low to hear across the room. She was looking at Marcus like someone who has just seen a piece of information land in a place it was not supposed to land, and is trying to understand how it got there. Marcus did not know she was there. He was watching the team work and feeling the German Shepherd's eyes on him and standing very still in the specific way you stand when you have just done something that cannot be undone and are waiting to find out what it costs. Ace pressed against his left knee. The monitor numbers moved in the right direction, and the German Shepherd sat beside the gurney of the woman who was his entire world, and watched Marcus Cole with amber eyes that had not yet decided what he was, but had already decided he was not an enemy. That was enough for now. That would have to be enough. The trauma team worked for 41 minutes, and Marcus stood at the edge of the bay and did not move. Ace was pressed against his left knee, watching the German Shepherd on the other side of the gurney with the steady professional attention of a dog that had made its assessment and was monitoring for changes. The other dog, whose tactical vest read Atlas Canine, Unit 7, in worn white letters, had not moved from his seated position since Marcus said the 3rd word. He was not relaxed. He was the specific kind of still the trained systems achieve when they are fully operational but not currently executing. Watching, processing, ready. Dr. Okafor called pressure at the 20-minute mark, and it was the right number, moving in the right direction, and the exhale that followed from the medical team was the kind that nobody planned. "She is going to make it," Okafor said. Not to Marcus specifically, but he heard it. He felt Ace's tail brush against his leg once. The woman in civilian clothes, who had been standing in the doorway since the 4th minute of the standoff, crossed the room at minute 42. She moved with the deliberate efficiency of someone who had been waiting for the right moment and had just determined it had arrived. She was approximately 40, dark hair, the posture of someone who had worn a uniform long enough that removing it had not changed how she carried herself. She stopped 3 feet from Marcus and looked at him with the specific attention of someone reading a file they have not yet been given access to. "Officer Cole," she said. It was not a question. That was the first thing he noticed. "You know my name," he said. "I have known your name for approximately 7 minutes," she said, "since I ran your badge number through the department database from my phone in the doorway." She looked at Ace, then back at Marcus. "My name is Commander Diane Reeves, Naval Special Warfare Command." She paused. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer it honestly." "All right. Where did you learn Ghost Protocol 7? The room was still active around them, medical staff moving with post-crisis efficiency, instruments recording, monitors maintaining their steady conversation. Gerald Cross had retreated to the far side of the bay, with the body language of a man processing a significant recalibration. Torres was sitting on an examination table, looking at his bandaged forearm, and the expression of someone whose professional self-assessment had been interrupted. "I was taught 3 words," Marcus said, "8 months ago, by someone who told me the phrase, and told me the words, and told me the situation in which they would matter." "Who?" He looked at her steadily. "Master Chief Petty Officer Lena Vasquez. Call sign, Atlas." The effect was immediate. Reeves went completely still. Not the controlled stillness of someone managing a reaction. The involuntary stillness of someone who has received information that requires a moment to process before the body remembers how to move. "That is not possible," she said. "She taught me personally. 40 minutes in a briefing room at the Coronado facility during the joint operation last October. She said I would know when to use what she told me." He watched Reeves's face. She was right. Reeves turned and looked at the woman on the gurney. The female SEAL, whose dark hair was spread against the pillow and whose color was slowly returning, who had been 40 minutes from death when Marcus walked through the door. Reeves looked at her for a long moment, with an expression that had layers Marcus could not fully read. "That is Lieutenant Commander Sarah Holt," Reeves said quietly. "Call sign, Echo. She has been running deep cover reconnaissance for naval intelligence for the past 11 months. She paused. "The dog is Zeus. He was assigned to Holt 18 months ago by a program that no longer officially exists. Ghost Protocol 7, Marcus said. The program that trained Zeus was shut down 14 months ago, following an operational incident. All records were classified above standard clearance. All handlers were reassigned or separated." Reeves turned back to face Marcus. "Master Chief Vasquez was the program director. She was the person who developed the hybrid training methodology, the commands, the entire protocol." Another pause, heavier this time. "She died 11 months ago. Helicopter crash during an extraction operation. Non-hostile incident. The investigation was conclusive." Marcus processed this. He thought about the woman who had sat across from him in a briefing room for 40 minutes, with the flat certainty of someone handing over something valuable and trusting it would be held correctly. He thought about the way she had spoken the 3 words and made him repeat them until his pronunciation was precise, and then said only that he would know when to use them. He said nothing. "Officer Cole." Reeves's voice had changed. Something had shifted under the professional register. A quality that was not quite urgency and not quite fear, but lived between them. "Ghost Protocol. 7 commands are unique to each dog. They are not transferable. A dog trained in the program responds to the specific voice and phonetic pattern of its handler and the handler's designated backup." She held his eyes. "Zeus should not have responded to you. He should not have responded to anyone outside his handler's immediate team." "He responded," Marcus said. "I know. I watched it." Reeves looked at Zeus, who was still at his seated position beside the gurney, amber eyes moving between the medical staff and Marcus with the systematic attention of a system that had accepted Marcus as something, but had not yet finished classifying what. The only explanation that makes operational sense is that Vasquez modified Zeus's secondary command protocol before the program was shut down. That she inserted a third-party authorization into his training that she did not document officially. Reeves paused. And that she gave that authorization to a patrol officer in San Diego 7 months before she died. The weight of that landed in the room and stayed there. "Why would she do that?" Marcus said. Not a challenge. A real question from someone who was still assembling the picture. "That," Reeves said, "is exactly what I need to find out." Ace shifted his weight against Marcus's leg. Not the shift of threat assessment, the shift of a dog that has detected something in the room that has changed and is checking whether his handler has noticed. Marcus had noticed. He had noticed it 30 seconds ago and was working through it. "Someone tried to kill Holt tonight," he said. Reeves looked at him sharply. "The call I intercepted said GSW, right thoracic. Single penetrating wound at close range. She was transported with Zeus and full kit, which means whoever brought her in grabbed everything and moved fast." Marcus watched Reeves's face as he assembled it. She was not in combat. She was in deep cover. Someone made her. "We do not know that yet. Does anyone in this hospital know what she was working on?" The pause was 4 seconds, long enough to confirm what the pause itself communicated. "Her operation is compartmentalized above this command level," Reeves said carefully. "Which means you do not know," Marcus said. "And you are the ranking naval intelligence officer in this building." Reeves did not deny it. That was its own answer. Dr. Okafor appeared at Marcus's shoulder, surgical gloves off, the contained exhaustion of someone who had just spent 40 minutes doing the most important work of their day. "She is stable. We are moving her to the surgical wing for the chest repair. She will be under general anesthesia for the next 3 hours minimum." "The dog," Marcus said. "That is the question." Okafor looked at Zeus, who had tracked the conversation with the focused attention of an animal that understood the people in the room were discussing something that directly concerned him. "He is not going to allow us to separate him from her. I have seen enough military canine behavior to know that forcing it is going to produce a situation worse than the one you resolved 20 minutes ago." "He can stay with her," Marcus said. "Officer Cole," Cross said from the far side of the room, his recovered authority arriving with slightly less force than it had possessed before the standoff. "You do not have authority to make decisions about this animal's placement in a medical facility." "He has more authority than anyone else in this room regarding that dog," Reeves said. She said it without looking at Cross. "The dog has accepted him as a secondary handler. That is not a designation that can be revoked by administrative preference." She looked at Okafor. "Zeus goes with Holt. Officer Cole will accompany both during transport." Cross opened his mouth. Reeves looked at him once with the expression of a person who has not finished their sentence and is not interested in interruption. He closed his mouth. Marcus looked at Zeus. The dog was looking at him with the amber-eyed assessment that had been running since the moment Marcus said the first word. Not hostility. Not full acceptance. Something in between. The careful evaluation of a system that has been given new information and is integrating it against established parameters. "Zeus," Marcus said. Not a command. Just the name, spoken the way he had heard Vasquez say the names of dogs she had trained, with the particular quality of someone who understood that a name was also a relationship. Zeus's ears moved forward 1 degree. Ace made a soft sound at Marcus's knee. Marcus looked down at his dog. Ace was looking at Zeus with the expression of a canine that has communicated something and is waiting for the other party to receive it. The 2 dogs had been in the same room for 41 minutes. Whatever they had been saying to each other in the language that existed below human frequency, they had been saying it the entire time. "All right," Marcus said to both of them. "We go with her." The transport to the surgical wing took 6 minutes, and in those 6 minutes, 3 things happened that Marcus filed immediately as significant. The first was that Torres fell into step beside him in the corridor and said quietly, "I have been working with military dogs for 14 years. I have never seen a combat-locked canine stand down for a non-handler. What you did in there, He paused, choosing his words with the care of a professional making an honest statement. That was not technique. That was something else. It was the right words at the right moment, Marcus said. It was more than that, Torres said. The way Zeus looked at you before he sat down. That was recognition. Not of your voice specifically, recognition of something in the protocol that told him you were authorized. Torres shook his head slowly. Vasquez built something into that dog before she died. Something that pointed to you. A patrol officer in San Diego. He looked at Marcus directly. Why you? Marcus did not have an answer. He was still working on the question. The second thing was that his phone buzzed with a message from a number he did not recognize. 7 words. No identification. No context. She told me you would find him. He stared at the screen for 3 seconds. Then the number went dead, returning a not found error that meant it had been routed through a disposable system that had just been closed. Someone knew he was here. Someone had known before he arrived. The third thing was that Reeves received a call that stopped her mid-stride. She listened for 20 seconds without speaking. Her face, which had been controlled and precise since the moment she introduced herself, shifted into something harder. She ended the call and looked at Marcus. The shooting location was identified, she said. 40 minutes ago. 3 blocks from the hospital. She paused. The scene was cleaned before our people reached it. Professional. Fast. Nothing left. Another pause. Except one thing. What? A K9 tactical collar. Military grade. Tan, worn, with a serial number that matches the Ghost Protocol 7 program's equipment registry. She held his eyes. It is not Zeus's collar. The serial number belongs to a dog that died 14 months ago in the incident that shut down the program. Her voice was very controlled now. The dog's name was Shadow. He was Vasquez's personal, operational canine. Marcus stopped walking. Zeus stopped with him, pressing against his left side with the instinctive positioning of a dog that has detected a significant change in the human beside him. Someone left it deliberately, Marcus said. Someone left it as a message, Reeves said. The question is whether the message is for us or for Holt. She looked at Zeus. Or for whoever the dog accepted tonight. Ace pressed against Marcus's right leg. 2 dogs, one on each side, both of them reading the corridor and the humans in it, and the change in the air that happened when a situation moves from emergency to something more deliberate and more dangerous. Marcus thought about the text message. She told me you would find him. She. Past tense. Someone who knew Vasquez had anticipated this moment. Someone who had spoken to Vasquez before she died and had been waiting 11 months for a patrol officer in San Diego to walk into a trauma bay and say 3 words that should not have existed in his memory. Commander Reeves, he said. What exactly happened during the helicopter crash that killed Vasquez? Reeves looked at him for a long moment. That investigation is classified. Is it conclusive? The pause was the answer. The investigation produced a conclusion, she said finally. Whether that conclusion is accurate is a question I have not been authorized to ask. She held his eyes. Until tonight, I had no reason to ask it. Zeus made a sound. Low, brief, the sound of an animal that has made a determination and is communicating it. Marcus looked at the dog and felt something he had no training for and no protocol to address. The specific weight of a situation that was much larger than the room it had started in and was still growing. He looked at his phone. The dead number. 7 words. She told me you would find him. Vasquez had built something into Zeus that pointed to Marcus. Had sent him 3 words through a briefing room meeting 8 months before she supposedly died. Had arranged, through channels Marcus could not see, for a patrol officer with no naval special warfare clearance to become the secondary authorization for a classified military working dog. The question was not why she had done it. The question was what she had known was coming, and what she had needed someone outside the system to be positioned for when it arrived. And the answer to that question was lying unconscious in a surgical suite 3 floors up, being kept alive by a trauma team that had only reached her because a dog stood down for a man who had been given 3 words by a woman everyone believed was dead. Marcus Cole was 25 years old, and he was a patrol officer, and he was standing in a hospital corridor with 2 German shepherds and a naval intelligence commander who was reconsidering everything she thought she knew about an 11-month-old investigation. "I need to see the file on Vasquez," he said. "You do not have clearance." "She gave me Ghost Protocol 7, he said. "Whatever clearance that implies, I have it." He met Reeves' eyes. "And someone out there knows I used it tonight. Which means by morning, whether either of us wants it, I am part of this." Reeves looked at him for a long moment. Then she looked at Zeus, who was still pressed against Marcus's side with the patient certainty of a dog that has made a decision and does not revisit decisions. "All right," she said. She said it the way people say things when they are crossing a line they cannot uncross and have decided the crossing is necessary. "All right, Officer Cole. Let us go find out what Vasquez knew." The file on Vasquez was 340 pages, and most of it was redacted. Reeves had pulled it on a secure tablet in a family waiting room on the 3rd floor that nobody was using at this hour. Marcus sat across from her, with Ace at his feet, and Zeus pressed against his left side, the dog's warmth a constant presence that he was beginning to understand was not incidental. Zeus was not resting. He was maintaining contact the way trained systems maintain contact with authorized personnel in unsecured environments. He had made his determination about Marcus in the trauma bay, and he was acting on it with a complete commitment of an animal that did not make decisions halfway. 14 months ago, Reeves said, turning the tablet so Marcus could see the unredacted sections. The Ghost Protocol 7 program was terminated following what the official record calls an operational incident during a joint intelligence exercise in the Pacific. 3 dogs lost, 2 handlers separated from service, 1 handler fatality. She paused. Vasquez. What does the incident report actually say? The unredacted portions say the helicopter went down due to mechanical failure. The investigation concluded within 72 hours, which is fast for any aviation incident and extremely fast for one involving classified personnel. Reeves tapped the screen. The portions that are redacted cover approximately 60% of the report, including the mission parameters, the operational objective, and the identities of the other personnel on the aircraft. Who authorized the redactions? Reeves looked at him. That information is itself redacted. Marcus absorbed this. Someone classified the identity of the person who classified the file. Yes. That is not standard procedure. No, Reeves said. It is not. Zeus made a sound, not the low growl of threat assessment, something shorter and more specific. The sound Ace made when he had been running a problem and had arrived at a conclusion. Marcus looked at the dog and felt the specific attention that 2 years of working together had built between them. The ability to read Ace's communication before it became behavior. Zeus was using the same register. Different dog, same language. He is telling you something, Ace said from his position at Marcus's right foot. That was not something Marcus said out loud, but he thought it, and he looked at Zeus, and Zeus looked back at him, and then looked deliberately at the tactical vest he was still wearing. The worn tan vest with the white lettering and the multiple pouches designed for operational utility. He has been wearing that vest since the trauma bay, Marcus said. Reeves looked at Zeus. Standard procedure is to remove operational equipment when a canine is in a medical facility. Nobody removed it because nobody could get close enough to remove it. Marcus looked at the vest. He thought about the micro SD card in Rex's vest from the previous story, then corrected himself. He thought about what Vasquez had said in the briefing room 8 months ago. She had talked about the dogs for 40 minutes, and she had said one thing he had not fully understood at the time. She had said that the program's documentation existed in 2 forms, the institutional record and the operational record, and that the operational record went where the dogs went. The vest, he said. Reeves stood immediately. Marcus moved carefully, the way he moved with any dog that had not fully transferred trust, slowly and without sudden angles, letting Zeus read every movement before it completed. He spoke the first of the 3 words, not the full command, just the first word, which Vasquez had told him meant something closer to, "I am authorized," than any direct translation allowed. Zeus looked at his hands, then at his face. Then he shifted his weight slightly forward, which was not submission, but was permission. Marcus ran his hands along the vest, along the chest plate, the side panels, the pouch closures. His fingers found the equipment pocket on the left shoulder, the one that looked structural, but whose closure had a secondary layer that did not match the outer material. He opened it. Inside was a waterproof case the size of a deck of cards. Inside the case was a drive and a folded piece of paper, and something else, a photograph. Printed on standard paper, slightly worn at the edges from the weight of the vest pressing against it for however long it had been there. The photograph showed Vasquez. She was in civilian clothes, not the operational gear Marcus had seen her in, and she was standing outside a building he did not recognize with 2 other people. A man he did not know, and Lieutenant Commander Sarah Holt. They knew each other, Marcus said. Reeves took the photograph, and her face did the thing it had done when Marcus first said Vasquez's name. The involuntary stillness of someone receiving information that restructures what they thought they knew. Holt was in the program, she said quietly, before she was assigned to Naval Intelligence. She was a handler in Ghost Protocol 7. Zeus was her dog, Marcus said. Zeus was assigned to her 18 months ago when she transitioned from the program to intelligence. But if she was in the program before that... Reeves looked at the vest, at the dog, at the photograph. She would have known the commands. She would have been trained by Vasquez. Which means Holt was not just running deep cover for naval intelligence, Marcus said. She was running it for whatever Vasquez was trying to expose, before the helicopter went down. Reeves put the photograph on the table and picked up the drive. "I cannot open this here," she said. "Whatever is on this requires a secure terminal, and it requires time, and right now, we do not have either." She looked at Marcus. "Someone shot Holt tonight and cleaned the scene. The same people who cleaned that scene know that Holt was in this hospital and that Zeus was with her." She paused. "They also know, because someone in this hospital is either reporting or was watching, that a patrol officer talked down Zeus with commands that are classified above almost every clearance in this building." "They know I used Ghost Protocol 7, Marcus said. "Yes, which means they know Vasquez gave it to me. Which means they know Vasquez anticipated this situation well enough to position a resource before she died." Reeves' voice was careful and precise. "If they believed the helicopter crash eliminated everyone who knew what she had discovered, tonight has just told them they were wrong." Ace stood up from his position at Marcus's feet. Not alert posture, the posture of a dog that has processed the room and arrived at an assessment that requires his handler's attention. He was looking at the door. Zeus was already looking at the door. Both dogs, same direction, same moment. Marcus was on his feet before he finished the thought. "Someone is outside." Reeves was already moving, putting the drive and the photograph inside her jacket. "The corridor camera in this wing has been showing static for the past 3 minutes. I should have caught that earlier." Her voice was controlled but moving fast. "Someone cut the feed." "How many exits from this floor?" "Stairwell at the east end, elevator bank at the west, service corridor between them." She looked at him. "We are between the stairwell and the elevator." Marcus looked at both dogs. Ace was tracking the door with the focused attention of a dog that has detected movement in a space that should be empty. Zeus was doing the same thing, but with the additional layer of an animal that had operational experience in exactly this kind of situation. His assessment carried the weight of deployments Marcus had never seen. "Zeus is telling you something different than Ace," Reeves said. "He is telling me there are 2 of them," Marcus said. He was not certain how he knew that. He knew it the way he knew things when he had been working with Ace long enough to read the specific quality of the dog's attention. 2 sources of movement produced a specific pattern in how a trained dog tracked. Zeus and Ace were not tracking the same point. They were tracking 2 different points converging on the same location. "Service corridor," Marcus said, "and the stairwell." "They are coming from both directions." "Yes." "We have 1 exit." Reeves looked at the room. "The window." "3rd floor." "There is a maintenance platform. Fire code." She was already moving to the window. "It will hold weight. The drop to the platform is 6 feet." Marcus looked at Zeus. "He cannot do 6 feet with a chest vest in the dark without prep." "Can Ace?" He looked at his dog. Ace looked back at him with the amber-eyed confidence of a dog that had been through the canine obstacle course at the academy 80 times and had an opinion about 6-foot drops that could be summarized as, "Not a problem." "Ace can," Marcus said. "Zeus needs a different option." The door handle moved. Not a knock, not an announcement. The slow, careful movement of someone testing whether the door was locked before deciding their next step. Reeves had her weapon out. Marcus had his weapon out. 2 dogs between them and the door, both of them in the coiled readiness of systems that had resolved their assessment and were waiting for authorization. "Zeus," Marcus said. The first word again. Authorization. Zeus looked at him. "There is going to be noise," Marcus told the dog. He did not know if the dog understood the sentence. He knew the dog understood the tone, the specific register of someone communicating the parameters of what was coming, rather than issuing a command. Vasquez had built something into the protocol that went beyond commands. She had built the capacity for relationship. The door opened. The first man through it was professional, fast, weapon already raised, the movement of someone who had done this before and expected the room to conform to his approach. Zeus hit him before the door fully cleared the frame. 85 pounds of operational German Shepherd, covering 8 feet in the time it took the man to register that the room was not empty. The man went down. His weapon skidded. Zeus held, not biting, but standing over the man with a posture that communicated the same message it had communicated in the trauma bay. Cross this line and find out. The second man came from the service corridor door at the back of the room. Reeves was already positioned for it, and what happened next was fast and decisive, and ended with the second man against the wall and his weapon in Reeves's hand. The third man did not come through either door. Marcus heard him in the corridor, the specific sound of someone recalculating their approach when the expected outcome had not materialized. Then footsteps receding toward the stairwell, fast but controlled. "He is calling it in," Marcus said. "I know." Reeves had the second man in a position that was not comfortable for him. She looked at Marcus. "We have less time than we had 30 seconds ago." The man on the floor under Zeus said nothing. He was looking at the ceiling with the focused blankness of someone doing the calculation of their current situation and not liking the result. Marcus crouched beside him. You came into a hospital, Marcus said, to finish what someone started 3 blocks away. That is not a jurisdictional question. That is federal. He watched the man's face. The people who sent you just lost the element of surprise and sent one person running. When that person reports back, you become a liability they did not anticipate. He paused. The only value you have right now is information, and you have about 40 seconds to decide whether you want to hold it or trade it. The man was quiet for 4 seconds. Zeus did not move. His amber eyes held the same patient authority they had held over the gurney in the trauma bay. The authority of a system that had already made its determination. "Kellner," the man said. "Captain Richard Kellner, Naval Intelligence Liaison to the Pacific Command Oversight Committee." His voice was flat. The voice of someone who has made a decision and is executing it. He has been managing the Vasquez file since the helicopter went down. When Holt surfaced tonight, he activated cleanup protocol. "Kellner authorized the shooting," Reeves said. Not a question. "Kellner has been authorizing a lot of things for 14 months, the man said. Things that are in files that are not supposed to exist. Marcus looked at Reeves. The redacted file. The person who authorized the redactions. "Kellner," she said. "He classified his own authorization. And if Holt had what Vasquez put in that vest, she had the documentation to prove it." Reeves looked at the drive in her jacket, which is why he needed her dead before she reached anyone who could receive it. Zeus made a sound, the short, specific sound that Marcus was learning to read as the sound of an animal that has been carrying something important and has recognized the moment to release it. He stepped back from the man on the floor, not dismissively, but with a deliberate movement of a dog that has completed one phase of its function and is reorienting to the next. He walked to Marcus and sat down at his left side. Marcus looked at the dog, at the amber eyes that had accepted him in a trauma bay an hour ago, for reasons he was still assembling. At the worn vest with the operational pocket that had held Vasquez's documentation for however long it had been there, waiting for the right hands. She knew Kellner would come after Holt, Marcus said. She knew the program would be shut down, and the file would be buried, and anyone who knew what she had found would be a target. He looked at Reeves. She gave me the 3 words 8 months before she died. She put the documentation in Zeus's vest and assigned Zeus to Holt. She built a chain that could only be activated by specific people in specific sequence. "A contingency," Reeves said. "A plan," Marcus said. She built a plan that did not require her to survive it. The weight of that landed in the room, and none of the 3 people present had an immediate response to it. Because sometimes the full size of what someone has done for a situation they knew was coming does not reduce to words quickly. Ace pressed against Marcus's right side, Zeus against his left. 2 dogs, different origins, different training, the same fundamental commitment to the person they had accepted. And between them, Marcus Cole, 25 years old, who had walked into a hospital tonight with 3 words and was now standing in the middle of a plan that a dead woman had built specifically for this moment. His phone buzzed, the same dead number, 3 words this time. Kellner knows Zeus. Marcus stared at the screen. Then he looked at Zeus and felt something cold and specific move through him. "Reeves," he said, "if Kellner built the program, if he was involved in the training protocol." Reeves understood immediately. Her face changed. He would know the override. Is there an override? "Every classified canine program has a termination protocol," she said. Her voice was very controlled. "A command that supersedes all other handler authority, built in for exactly the scenario where a dog's loyalty becomes an operational liability." She looked at Zeus. "If Kellner has that command, he can override everything Vasquez built," Marcus said, "including whatever Zeus has accepted from me." Zeus was looking at the door, not with threat assessment, with the specific attention of a dog that has heard something below the frequency of human perception. Something in the building. Something moving toward this floor, with the patient deliberateness of someone who knows exactly where they are going. "He is already here," Marcus said. Reeves moved to the door. The stairwell. The man who ran went directly to him. She looked at Marcus. "We cannot let Kellner get to Zeus. If he uses the termination command..." "The documentation in the vest becomes accessible to anyone," Marcus said. "Zeus stops protecting it. And Holt is in surgery, 3 floors up, with no protection, and a dog that has been commanded to stand down." Marcus looked at Zeus one more time, at the dog that Vasquez had trained and positioned and trusted with 14 months of waiting, at the amber eyes that held the same quality they had held in the trauma bay, the quality of a system that has accepted an authorization and is operating on it completely. "Zeus," he said. The full first word this time, not the authorization tone, the operational tone, the one Vasquez had told him to use when the situation required the dog to understand that what came next was the most important thing it would be asked to do. Zeus stood. His whole body changed. Not the threat posture of the trauma bay, something more focused and more deliberate. The posture of a dog that has received a mission. "We are not going to let him get to you," Marcus said. Zeus looked at him for exactly 2 seconds. Then his tail moved once, brief and certain. The movement of an animal that is understood and is ready. In the stairwell outside the door, footsteps reached the 3rd floor landing. Marcus Cole took a breath, checked his weapon, and moved to position. The plan Vasquez built had led here. He was going to make sure it led somewhere past here, too. The stairwell door opened, and Captain Richard Kellner walked through it like a man who owned the building. He was 61 years old, silver-haired, the kind of physical presence that came from decades of institutional authority rather than physical training. He wore civilian clothes, and he had no weapon visible, and he walked into the family waiting room with his hands at his sides and his eyes moving through the space with the systematic efficiency of someone cataloging variables rather than experiencing a situation. His eyes found Zeus immediately, and Zeus found him. What happened in the next 2 seconds was not aggression, and it was not submission, and Marcus had never seen it before in 2 years of working with Ace, and he filed it instantly as something he needed to understand. Zeus went completely still, not the combat-locked stillness of the trauma bay, not the operational readiness of the past 20 minutes. Something older and more complicated. The stillness of an animal that has encountered something its training gave it 2 completely contradictory instructions about, and is running the conflict in real time. Kellner knew exactly what he was seeing. "Hello, Zeus," he said. His voice was controlled and warm and entirely false. The warmth of someone performing a relationship rather than having one. "It has been a long time." Zeus made a sound, low, uncertain, the sound of a dog in conflict. "Officer Cole," Kellner looked at Marcus, without any of the warmth. "You have had a remarkable evening." A patrol officer with no federal clearance, in possession of classified Naval Special Warfare K-9 commands, in a hospital with a compromised intelligence asset, in a room with a naval intelligence commander, and 2 men who I will characterize as unaffiliated contractors who appear to have had an incident. He looked at the 2 men, who were secured against the far wall with the practiced stillness of professionals waiting to see how a situation resolved. That is a significant amount of coincidence for a patrol officer. "It is not coincidence," Marcus said. "No," Kellner said. "It is Vasquez." He said the name the way people say the names of things they have been managing for a long time and are tired of. She was thorough, I will give her that. building redundancies into the program, positioning assets she did not document, inserting authorization protocols into a dog's secondary training matrix without institutional approval. He tilted his head slightly. She was also, ultimately, predictable. Every contingency she built pointed toward the same outcome: protecting the documentation, getting it to someone outside the system. He looked at the vest on Zeus. "And I see she chose the most obvious hiding place available." "You know about the vest?" Reeves said. "I know about everything, Commander. That is the nature of my position." Kellner looked at her with the specific patience of a senior officer explaining something to a junior one. "I authorized the redactions on the Vasquez file because the Vasquez file contained information that was operationally sensitive in ways that went above your clearance level. The helicopter incident was managed correctly, and the program was terminated for reasons that were sound and documented and reviewed by people who have considerably more authority than either of you." "You had her killed," Marcus said. "I managed a situation that had become untenable," Kellner said. His voice did not change. That was the thing about men like Kellner. They had spent enough time in rooms where terrible decisions were framed as management that the framing had become genuine. They no longer heard the difference. Vasquez built a program that operated outside institutional parameters. She developed methodologies that were not approved. She cultivated relationships with personnel outside her operational chain. He looked at Marcus. Including, apparently, a patrol officer she met during a joint exercise that she should not have been part of. "She was protecting the documentation," Reeves said. "If it exposes what you have been authorizing for the past 14 months, it exposes nothing actionable," Kellner said, "because the documentation requires a living witness to provide context, and the living witness is currently in surgery." He paused. "Which brings me to why I am here." Marcus felt Ace press against his right leg. Zeus was still in the conflict stillness, amber eyes moving between Kellner and Marcus, with the rhythm of an animal running a binary that had not resolved. Marcus could feel the weight of that unresolved binary in the room, the way you could feel weather pressure changing before the storm arrived. "You need Zeus," Marcus said. "I need what is in that vest," Kellner said. "And I need the dog to not be a variable when I retrieve it." He looked at Zeus. "The termination protocol exists for exactly this situation. A dog whose loyalty has become operationally misaligned." He said the next words without raising his voice, without theatrics, with the flat administrative certainty of someone executing a procedure they had reviewed multiple times. The words were in the same hybrid language as the 3 commands Vasquez had taught Marcus. The same phonetic base, the same tonal structure. But where Vasquez's words had been built for authorization and trust, these words were built for something else. Overwrite, supersede, terminate the established hierarchy. Zeus made a sound that Marcus had never heard from a dog before. It was not pain, and it was not fear, and it was not aggression. It was the sound of a system receiving 2 incompatible instructions simultaneously and being unable to reconcile them. The sound of something that had been built on loyalty, encountering a command that ordered the loyalty to stop. Zeus's posture changed. His weight shifted toward Kellner. Not fully, not committed, but the shift was there. The beginning of a reorientation. The override beginning to find its footing against 14 months of Holt, and 8 months of Vasquez's positioning, and 40 minutes of Marcus in a trauma bay. "Stop," Marcus said. He said it in English. Not a command from the protocol, just a word. But he said it with the specific quality that Vasquez had spent 40 minutes trying to give him in a briefing room 8 months ago. The quality she had called not authority over the dog, but relationship with the dog. The quality that existed below the protocol and above instinct. Zeus stopped shifting. Kellner's eyes moved to Marcus with something that was not quite surprise, but was adjacent to it. "That will not hold," he said. "The termination protocol supersedes all secondary authorizations. It was designed to be absolute." "Then say it again," Marcus said. Kellner said it again. Zeus made the sound again, the conflict sound, the sound of incompatible instructions. And Marcus, without knowing he was going to do it, crouched down to Zeus's level, something you did not do with a combat dog in a conflict state, something that put him in the most exposed position possible. And he said the first of the three words, not as a command, with no operational weight behind it, just as the word itself, the way Vasquez had said it to him when she was teaching it, the way a name is also a relationship. Zeus turned his head. His amber eyes found Marcus's face at eye level, and the conflict in them did not resolve, but it stopped escalating. And in the space that created, Marcus said the second word, and the third word. And then he said something that was not from the protocol at all, something he had no training for and no precedent for. He said Zeus's name, the way Vasquez had said the names of her dogs in the briefing room, with the quality of someone who understood that a name was not a label, but a conversation. Zeus pressed his head against Marcus's chest. Not submission, not transfer of loyalty. The gesture of an animal that has been given two incompatible instructions and has chosen, in the absence of resolution, to be where the thing that felt like Vasquez was, because Vasquez had built something into Marcus that her protocol could identify, even when her voice was gone. Kellner said the termination protocol a third time. His voice was harder now, the warmth entirely absent, the administrative certainty replaced by something more urgent. Nothing happened. Zeus did not move. "That is not supposed to be possible," Kellner said. "She modified it," Marcus said. He was still at Zeus's level, his hand on the dog's back, feeling the animal breathe. "She built something into the secondary protocol that the termination command could not override. You terminated the program, and the file, and the helicopter, and you thought you terminated everything she built." He looked up at Kellner. "You did not know about the modification because she did not document it. She did not document it because she knew you would find it if she did." "Whatever she built is not legally binding," Kellner said. "It is an unauthorized modification to a classified program by an operator who was already under administrative review for exactly this kind of unilateral action." "She built it anyway," Marcus said. He stood. "Because she knew what you were, and she knew what you would do. And she spent the last months of her life making sure you could not finish it." He looked at Reeves. The drive. Reeves had her hand inside her jacket. She looked at Kellner, and she looked at Marcus. And she made the decision that people make when they have reached the point where the institution they serve and the right thing to do have separated far enough that only one of them is actually a choice. She pulled out the drive. Kellner moved. Fast for a 61-year-old man. The speed of someone who had spent enough years in operational environments that the reflexes had not entirely left with the field work. He was not going for the drive. He was going for his phone, the specific movement of someone activating a contingency, calling in a resource that had not yet been deployed. Ace moved faster. Not at Kellner, between Kellner and the door. 80 pounds of police-trained German Shepherd in the blocking position that Marcus had trained him for every week for 2 years. The position that communicated without contact or aggression that a path was closed. Kellner stopped. He looked at Ace, then at Zeus, who had risen from Marcus's side and was standing in the full operational posture now. The posture that had held a trauma bay for 23 minutes, except this time it was pointed with absolute clarity at Kellner. 2 dogs, the same posture, The same amber-eyed certainty, one trained by the most classified canine program in naval special warfare history. One trained by a patrol officer from San Diego who had inherited something from that program through a briefing room meeting and 3 words, and the specific quality of a dead woman's trust. "Captain Kellner," Reeves said. Her voice had the controlled authority of someone who has crossed the line and is not going back. "You are under investigative detention, pending review of your authorization of the redactions on the Vasquez operational file, your authorization of the cleanup protocol for the Holt shooting, and your presence in this hospital this evening." She looked at the 2 men against the wall. "Including your involvement with the contractors who entered this room." "You do not have the authority," Kellner said. "I have the drive," she said. "And I have a civilian witness to everything that happened in this room tonight. And I have the testimony of a patrol officer who will state under oath what you said in this room, including the use of a classified termination protocol to attempt to override a military working dog's established loyalty hierarchy." She paused. "And I have a dog that just demonstrated in front of 2 witnesses that the termination protocol you used 14 months ago on Master Chief Vasquez's program did not work the way you believed it worked." Her voice was very quiet now, which raises questions about what else did not work the way you believed it worked. Kellner looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked at Marcus. Then at Zeus. The calculation behind his eyes ran its course. The specific calculation that men run when every variable has turned against them, and the only remaining question is the size of the damage. He sat down, not defeated, not broken. The calculated compliance of a man who was already planning the next move from a position he had not anticipated occupying. Marcus recognized it. He had seen it in patrol work, the compliance that was not surrender, but repositioning. "You need to get the drive to someone outside this command structure, tonight," Marcus said to Reeves, "before he makes a call from whatever secure channel he has access to." "I know who to call," she said. "Is that person clean?" "She is the person Vasquez put in my contact list 8 months ago." Reeves met his eyes. "I did not know who it was until tonight. It was coded. The code used a phrase that I only heard one other time." She paused. "Ghost Protocol 7. Marcus absorbed this. Vasquez had not just positioned Marcus. She had positioned Reeves, had built a chain of people who would not connect until the right moment activated the connection. A patrol officer with 3 words. A naval intelligence commander with a contact code. A drive in a dog's vest. A living witness in a surgical suite. She had built it from her own death backward, placing each piece exactly where it needed to be for the moment she knew was coming. Zeus pressed against Marcus's left side. His amber eyes were on Kellner with the patient vigilance of an animal that had made its final assessment and was not revisiting it. The conflict was gone. The binary had resolved. Not because the termination protocol had been answered or defeated, but because Vasquez had built something underneath the protocol that the protocol could not reach. Loyalty below the level of commands. The kind that does not require instructions because it was never built on instructions. Marcus put his hand on Zeus's back and felt the dog breathe and thought about a woman who had sat in a briefing room and spoken 3 words to a patrol officer she had met once and trusted with something that mattered more than her own survival. He thought about what that kind of trust required, what it cost, what it assumed about the person receiving it. His phone buzzed. The dead number. The last message it would ever send, he understood somehow, because the sequence Vasquez had built was reaching its final stage. 4 words. She is waking up now. Marcus looked at Reeves. Holt. Reeves was already on her phone. 30 seconds later, she looked up. Surgery completed ahead of schedule. She is in recovery. She is asking for Zeus. Zeus made a sound. The specific sound Marcus had learned in 40 minutes to read as the sound of an animal who has received the information it has been waiting for and is ready to move. All right, Marcus said. Take us to her. He looked at Kellner one last time. The man sat with the stillness of someone who had calculated the available moves and was waiting for the board to reveal the next configuration. He was not done. Men like Kellner were never done in a single night. But he was contained, and the drive was in Reeves's jacket, and the documentation that Vasquez had built was moving toward the people who could use it. One night, one trauma bay, 3 words from a dead woman. It had been enough to get here. Marcus Cole walked out of the room with 2 German shepherds at his sides, tan and gold coats moving in the same rhythm, amber eyes reading the corridor with the focused attention of animals that had accepted their direction and were not looking back. Whatever came next, he was not facing it alone. Vasquez had made sure of that, too. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Holt was awake, and she was asking for Zeus. And she was also, Marcus discovered when he walked into the recovery room, asking for him by name. He stopped in the doorway. Ace and Zeus both moved past him. Ace with the professional curiosity of a dog entering an unfamiliar room. Zeus with the focused directness of an animal that knew exactly where it was going and had been waiting to get there for the entire length of the worst night of his operational life. Zeus reached the bed in 4 steps and put his head against Holt's hand and made the sound that Marcus had heard only once before, in the trauma bay when Holt first arrived. The sound of an animal that has been doing something very hard and has finally found the person it was doing it for. Holt's hand moved to Zeus's ears. Her eyes were open and she was pale, and there were tubes and monitors doing their work around her. But her focus, when it found Marcus, was clear and direct, and contained the specific quality of someone who had been briefed on a situation while sedation was still leaving their system, and was processing faster than the circumstances suggested was possible. "You used Protocol 7, she said. 3 words, Marcus said. That is the complete extent of what I have. It was enough. Her voice was rough from the anesthesia tube. She told me about you, 8 months ago, before the exercise. She said she had found someone outside the system who she was going to trust with a secondary authorization. Holt looked at him. She said she chose you because you were the only person at the joint exercise who asked about the dogs before asking about the mission. Marcus did not have an immediate response to that. He thought about the October exercise, about the briefing room, about the 40 minutes with Vasquez. He remembered asking about the dogs. He had not thought of it as anything significant. It had just been the obvious question. She built the whole chain on that, he said. She built the whole chain on knowing what kind of person asks that question, Holt said. And what kind of person doesn't. She looked at Reeves, who had come in behind Marcus. The drive. Reeves produced it. Holt looked at it in Reeves's hand for a long moment, with the expression of someone seeing something they have been carrying the weight of for a long time, and are now watching finally arrive at its destination. 14 months, Holt said. She put that together in the last 4 months before the helicopter. She was already under review. Kellner had flagged her for the unauthorized protocol modifications, and she knew the review was going to end badly. Holt's jaw tightened. She knew what he was going to do. She just could not prove it fast enough to stop it. What is on the drive? Marcus said. Everything. Holt's hand moved in the automatic motion of a handler whose dog is present, the motion that happened below conscious thought. Kellner has been running unauthorized intelligence operations through the Pacific Command oversight structure for 9 years. weapons procurement diversions, black site funding that bypassed congressional oversight, and 3 operational incidents in the past 4 years where operators who got too close to the financial channels had accidents. She paused. Non-hostile incidents, mechanical failures, the kind that produce clean investigations. Vasquez was not the first, Reeves said. Vasquez was the 4th. Holt's voice was flat, with the flatness of someone who has been carrying a number for a long time. She was the first one who saw it coming early enough to build a response. She looked at Marcus, and the response she built was you. The weight of that landed in the room, and Marcus let it land without trying to diminish it, because diminishing it would not have been accurate. A woman who knew she was going to die had spent her last months building a chain that ended with a patrol officer in a trauma bay. That was not a small thing. That deserved to be received at its full size. His phone buzzed, not the dead number, his actual department phone. Dispatch, calling him back to the I-8 corridor, unaware that the double shift he had left an hour ago had become something considerably larger than a traffic accident. He looked at the screen, and then he looked at Holt, and he said, "I need to tell my department where I am." "That call," Reeves said carefully, "is going to require a conversation with your lieutenant." "I know. You are a patrol officer who used classified Naval Special Warfare K-9 protocols in a federal medical facility, and then participated in the detention of a naval intelligence captain." She said it plainly, not as a threat, but as an inventory. "Your department is going to have questions." "They are going to have a lot of questions," Marcus said. "I will answer all of them." He looked at Ace, who was sitting beside his right leg with a patient, amber-eyed steadiness that had been the constant of the entire night. Starting with the one about how a patrol officer knew Ghost Protocol 7, which is going to require telling them about Vasquez, which is going to require this file to be in the right hands before I have that conversation. "The contact Vasquez put in my list," Reeves said. "I reached her while you were in the recovery room. She is with the Inspector General's office, Pacific Command, and she has been waiting for this call for 8 months. She held up her phone. She is sending a team tonight. Kellner is already being transferred to federal custody pending review." Reeves paused. "She also said something else." "What?" "She said that Vasquez called her 3 weeks before the helicopter crash. That Vasquez told her a patrol officer named Marcus Cole had been given the secondary authorization. That when Ghost Protocol 7 was used in a real situation, Cole's testimony would be the first thing the IG team needed." Reeves met his eyes. "She has been waiting for you, specifically." Marcus processed this. Vasquez had not just positioned him for the dog. She had positioned him as a witness. A civilian witness outside the institutional structure, with no clearance to be managed, and no career to threaten, and no chain of command that Kellner could access. A patrol officer from San Diego, whose testimony about the events of one night in a hospital was the most legally uncomplicated piece of evidence in the entire chain. She had thought of everything. She had thought of things he had not thought of about himself. "She trusted you," Holt said. She was watching him with the focused clarity that was returning to her face by degrees as the anesthesia finished leaving her system. "Not just with the commands, with the whole sequence. Every part of what happened tonight required you to make the right call under pressure without knowing why it was the right call." She paused. "The trauma bay, the waiting room, the 3rd floor. You could have deferred to Kellner's rank at any point. He was a naval intelligence captain, and you were a patrol officer, and institutional gravity would have supported you stepping back." "He was wrong," Marcus said simply. "Yes," Holt said. "That is why she chose you." Ace stood up from his position and walked to Zeus, and the 2 dogs regarded each other for a moment with the specific mutual attention of animals who have been through something significant together and are conducting their own accounting of it. Then Ace returned to Marcus's left knee, and Zeus returned to his position beside Holt's bed, and the room settled into the particular quiet of a situation that is resolved without fully releasing the tension of what it cost to resolve. The IG team arrived at 0400. 2 investigators and a senior analyst, who moved through the hospital with the efficiency of people who had been waiting for this call and had been prepared for it. They spent 40 minutes with Holt, and 30 minutes with Reeves, and 22 minutes with Marcus, during which he answered every question precisely and completely, and did not omit anything, including the 3 text messages from the dead number, which the analyst received with an expression that suggested it was not the most unusual piece of evidence she had processed, but was somewhere in the upper range. "The number," the analyst said. "The dead burner. The messages referenced Vasquez in past tense and present tense in the same thread." "Yes," Marcus said. "The final message came after Vasquez had been listed as killed in action for 11 months. "Yes." The analyst looked at him for a long moment. "Officer Cole, do you have a theory about the source of those messages?" He had been thinking about this since the 3rd message arrived. He had been thinking about it with a specific quality of attention he gave things he did not want to assume and did not want to dismiss. "I have an observation," he said. "Not a theory." "Tell me the observation." "Vasquez built a chain that required specific people to activate specific pieces in a specific sequence. She positioned me. She positioned Reeves. She put the documentation in the vest and assigned Zeus to Holt, and coded a contact in Reeves's phone." He paused. "Every piece of that chain was set in motion before the helicopter crash. Every piece could be explained as preparation for a contingency she anticipated." He met the analyst's eyes. "Except the messages. The messages were real-time. They responded to events as they happened. The first message came after I arrived at the hospital. The second after I secured the drive. The third after Kellner used the termination protocol." The analyst was very still. "Someone was watching tonight," Marcus said. "Someone who knew the chain well enough to track it in real time, and knew which pieces needed activation at which moments." "You are suggesting Vasquez had a partner," the analyst said. "I am observing that the messages came from someone who knew the sequence and was monitoring its execution." He paused. "I am not suggesting anything about who that person was." The analyst wrote something on her tablet and said nothing further about it. Marcus noted the silence and noted what it communicated and filed it in the same place he had filed the text messages and the dead number, and the specific quality of the termination protocol failing against the modification Vasquez had built. There were still things that were not fully assembled. He accepted that. Not everything resolved in one night. Kellner was transferred to federal custody at 0530. Marcus learned this from Reeves, who appeared in the corridor outside Holt's room with the contained expression of someone who has watched something they worked toward arrive and is still processing that it actually arrived. "He is demanding to speak with his attorney," she said. "His attorney is a firm that has represented Pacific Command officers for 20 years. The IG analyst says that firm is itself under review as part of the financial audit the drive initiated." Reeves paused. "He may find the legal resources less available than he anticipated." "He will find other resources," Marcus said. "Men like Kellner always do." "Yes, but the drive is authenticated and in federal evidence, and Holt is alive to testify, and you are a civilian witness who can speak to the termination protocol attempt in a room with 2 other witnesses." Reeves looked at him with the directness she had been using since the trauma bay. The directness of someone who had made a decision about what kind of officer she was going to be and was no longer hedging it. He does not have the variables he needed to contain this. Because Vasquez took them from him before she died, Marcus said. Yes. Reeves was quiet for a moment. She trusted a patrol officer she met once. She modified a classified program without authorization. She hid documentation in a dog's vest and built a chain of people who would not connect until the right moment. She paused. And it worked. Marcus thought about that. About what it meant for something to work when the person who built it was not alive to see it. About the specific quality of trust that could reach across 11 months and a helicopter crash and land in a trauma bay at 23:47 hours on a Tuesday night. She did not build it to work for herself, he said. She built it to work for Holt. And for the 4 people before Holt who did not make it. He looked at the door to the recovery room. That is a different kind of thing than building something to work for yourself. Sergeant Torres appeared at the end of the corridor. He had been in the hospital since the trauma bay, and he had been doing the thing that good professionals do when they have been shown something outside their training. He had been paying attention and reassessing, and doing the quiet internal work of incorporating new information accurately. He stopped in front of Marcus with the directness of someone who has decided to say something they could have avoided saying. I have 14 years with military working dogs, Torres said. I trained on every classified program the Canine Division has run in that time. I have handled dogs that most handlers never get near. He looked at Marcus. What you did tonight with Zeus, the secondary authorization, the modification holding against the termination protocol, that is not in any manual I have ever read. He paused. I want to understand it. I do not fully understand it myself, Marcus said honestly. What do you understand? Marcus thought about the trauma bay, about the moment the third word landed and Zeus stepped back from the gurney, about the waiting room and the conflict sound, and the moment he crouched down and said Zeus's name the way Vasquez had said her dog's names, with the quality of a relationship rather than a command. She built the commands on top of something that was already there, he said. The protocol is the surface. Underneath it is the relationship, the trust, the thing that exists before training and continues after training ends. He looked at Ace, who was sitting at his left knee with the amber-eyed patience that had been the constant of his entire career. She understood that if you can reach that level, the protocol becomes almost irrelevant. Because the dog is not following commands anymore. It is following the thing the commands were built to express. Torres was quiet for a long moment. That is not a training methodology, he said. That is a philosophy. It is both, Marcus said. She built a program that operationalized the philosophy. And when Kellner shut down the program, the philosophy survived in the dogs. He paused. Because you cannot classify a relationship out of existence. Torres nodded slowly, the nod of someone who has received something true and is going to spend time with it. He turned and walked back toward the elevator without another word, and Marcus watched him go and felt Ace press against his knee, and did not say anything because there was nothing to add. He went back into Holt's room at 0600. She was more alert now, the color returning, the focus in her eyes sharper. Zeus was in the same position he had occupied for the entire night, pressed against the bed, head on the mattress beside her hand. The relationship that had been interrupted by a shooting 3 blocks from this hospital had resumed with the completeness that only the bond between a handler and a canine achieves, the bond that does not require continuity because it never actually pauses. Your statement to the IG, Holt said, completed. They told me what you said about the messages, about the someone who was watching. Yes. Holt looked at him for a long moment, the look of someone deciding how much to say and making a final decision about it. She is not dead, Holt said. Vasquez. The helicopter crash had 2 survivors. The official record acknowledges 1. She watched his face. The other one has been in a protected location for 11 months, building the case that the drive contains, waiting for the chain she built to activate. The room was very quiet. Marcus processed this. He thought about the dead number, and the real-time messages, and the observation he had given the IG analyst about someone monitoring the sequence as it executed. He thought about the photograph from the vest, the one showing Vasquez and Holt together. He thought about what it would require to fake a death convincingly enough to survive 11 months of Kellner's management, and to build a case from behind that survival, and to position every piece of a chain that would activate on the right night. He thought about 3 words given to a patrol officer who asked about the dogs before the mission. "She is going to testify," he said. "She has been waiting for Kellner to be in custody before she surfaced," Holt said. "That happened 40 minutes ago." Her eyes were steady. "She asked me to tell you something." "What?" "Thank you for asking about the dogs." Marcus looked at Ace. The dog looked back at him with amber eyes that held the steady warmth of 2 years of working together. 2 years of traffic accidents and domestic calls, and 1 night in a hospital that had turned out to be the convergence point of everything Vasquez had built. He looked at Zeus. Zeus looked back with the amber-eyed certainty of an animal that had found its direction and was not confused about it anymore. 2 dogs. 1 patrol officer who had walked into a trauma bay with nothing but 3 words and the instinct to ask the right question. Some plans required a great many pieces. Some pieces looked like nothing until the moment they were needed. And some questions, asked simply and without calculation, in the presence of dogs and the people who trained them, turned out to be exactly the right foundation for everything that came after. Marcus Cole was 25 years old, and he had a double shift to finish and a report to write, and a conversation with his lieutenant that was going to be the most complicated professional discussion of his career. He also had 2 German shepherds looking at him with amber eyes that expressed, with a complete certainty that only dogs achieve, that whatever came next, they already knew the answer to the only question that mattered. He had been the right person. He had always been the right person. Vasquez had known it before he did, and she had built her whole plan on it. And the plan had held, and the truth was in federal evidence, and the man who killed her was in custody, and she was alive. That was enough. That was everything. That was exactly what loyalty, given freely and trusted completely, was always capable of building.